Segment 4, Part 1 of our Grand Pacific Voyage, Adventures on the Pacific Rim. In this part, we start Segment 4 in Brisbane, Australia, 3 days at sea en route to New Zealand, before making landfall in the Bay of Islands, New Zealand, followed by Auckland, New Zealand. We begin this segment with our last stop in Australia, before continuing on to New Zealand, Brisbane. Brisbane is the capital of Queensland, Australia, with a population of around 2.7 million, and the city proper and a metropolitan population of around 4 million. It is the third most populous city in Australia. They call Queensland the Sunshine State, and Brisbane's modern metropolitan area fully exploits its sun-drenched location. The temperate climate makes Brisbane a city of outdoor activities, adventures, and a chilled relaxation. Upon arrival, we were greeted by this scoop of pelicans, just lazing about a small beach near the ship. Our excursion today was Brisbane sites and the Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary. And that's where we started, at the sanctuary and with some koalas. Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary was opened in 1927 by Queenslander Claude Reed, with just 2 koalas, Jack and Jill. This was at a time when wild koalas were being hunted for the fur trade. There are now over 100 rescued koalas living in the sanctuary, along with many different birds, mammals, and reptiles. Here are a few of the bird species that populate the Lone Pine Sanctuary. This plump fellow standing guard outside the crocodile paddock that was crocodile-free and under construction at the time we visited. One of the highlights of the sanctuary, at least in my opinion, was the free flight raptor show. Handlers introduced us to 3 species of raptors that were, for the most part, allowed to fly freely over the crowd. After the raptor experience, we headed off to find some kangaroos and found these guys hanging around outside the official kangaroo compound. After the ruse, we were introduced to a working dog. Coordinating with hand signals and sounds, the dog worked closely with the handler to wrangle these sheep. And after wandering around a little bit more, it was time to leave the Lone Pine Sanctuary and head off for our next stop, the lookout on Mount Coot-tha. Mount Coot-tha gave us a beautiful panoramic view of the Brisbane skyline. And after a quick stop at Mount Coot-tha, we headed on to the Brisbane River. The Brisbane River waterfront is home to many activities and a long park-like stretch of land featuring a scenic walkabout. From our vantage point, we caught a good glimpse of the river and one of the river ferries, the Bluey. The hillside was also home to these guys. These lizards were everywhere. Soon enough, it was time to return to the Silver Muse and get ready for dinner, sailing away in the darkness. We decided tonight to keep it simple for dinner and headed up to Deck 11 for Spaccanapoli. There is very little better than good pizza, and this is very good pizza. And after a bit more messing around and carousing, we went to bed with the knowledge that we would have 3 more days at sea before making landfall in New Zealand. Our first day at sea en route to New Zealand was another formal optional night, and we started off the day visiting the fitness center as usual, but this time making a little bit of time for the saunas. And after a good steam and hot sauna, we headed off to Atlantide for a nice sit-down sort of breakfast. We had our usual light breakfast that included fruit plates and then sharing an avocado jalapeno omelet and a little crispy bacon. Now, the evening before, we had received a surprise invitation to sit at the captain's table. I say surprise because of all the cruises we have taken in the past, this was the first time we were privileged to dine with the captain. And here we are with Song taking her place at the side of the captain and kicking me to the curb. Our next day at sea en route to New Zealand found us attending another special breakfast for the Grand Pacific Voyage passengers. So with mimosa in hand and loading up on pâté foie gras and pâté of wild boar, fruit platters and French toast, we played around a bit more for our second day at sea and got ready for our third. For our third day at sea en route to New Zealand brought us a beautiful sunrise and calm oceans. The day went uneventfully, and we were excitedly looking forward to our next day, which would be our first day in New Zealand. The next morning, after a beautiful sail in to the Bay of Islands, we anchored in the bay and then tendered into the port. The Bay of Islands is home to 144 islands, ranging from mere rocky outcrops to large inhabited islands with private farms. Towns in and around the Bay of Islands include Paihia, Russell, Kirikiri, Opa, and Kawakawa. The Maori call this area Ipipiri, meaning many places to fish, to swim, to settle, and enjoy the bounty. Our excursion for the day found us on a smaller boat, the Dolphin Seeker, for a cruise to what is called the Hole in the Rock or Percy Island. The Maori name for this island is Motu Koakako. The island itself is Maori freehold land, which is managed by a trust for the benefit of the descendants of the traditional owners. weather threatening, it was a beautiful 45-minute sail to the island. Now you might ask, since we were on Dolphin Seeker, did we see dolphins? Well, yes we did. And here's the best my iPhone could do. Well, make that me and my iPhone. Decided to roll up next to the boat to give us a little closer look. And then later, as we began to make way once more, they followed closely in our wake for some distance. Several of those 144 islands making up the Bay of Islands. The islands are replete with hundreds of small inlets and bays, with seemingly small sailboats tucked up into almost all of them. Before finally arriving at our destination, the Hole in the Rock, or Percy Island. The famous Captain Cook named the island Percy Island in honor of one of the Lords of the Admiralty. The 60-foot or 18-meter hole at sea level was created over centuries by wind and waves, making it one of the most naturally beautiful sights in New Zealand. It is a popular tourist destination, and there are a multitude of tours offered, and if the waters are calm enough and the tide is right, jet boats or even our much larger excursion craft will ride right through the hole in the rock, in essence, threading the needle. Conditions must have been optimal, because thread the needle we did before continuing on our way and heading back toward the Silver Muse. As mentioned earlier, many of the islands are inhabited either with vacation homes or homesteads and farms on some of the larger islands. We were told this rather unique house is called the Waterfall House or the Glass House. It is indeed a unique and beautiful house set in a unique and beautiful environment. While we did get rained on a bit, it was all good. And soon enough, we were once more passing by the Silver Muse on our way to the dock, our tender, and back aboard. Well, it was home again, and then on our way, leaving the Bay of Islands. After a bit of fun and frivolity, in the evening we tucked in and got ready for our next day, Auckland, New Zealand. Auckland, New Zealand, also known as the City of Sails, is New Zealand's largest city with a population of around 1.5 million. The Greater Auckland region has a total population of about 1.8 million as of June 2024. It is the fifth largest city in Oceania and has the fourth largest foreign-born population in the world, with a whopping 39% of its residents born overseas. As you can see, Auckland was gearing up for their Christmas celebration, and because of our proximity to downtown, we were able to walk and check things out. As you wander the streets of downtown Auckland, you see a lot of Chinese and other languages peppering the signs advertising the various businesses. Despite being quite hilly in some areas, Auckland is a very walkable city. Soon enough, it was time to head back to the ship and get ready for our real excursion for the day, the Hamptons of New Zealand. The Hamptons of New Zealand excursion was one of the two exclusive Grand Pacific Voyage excursions arranged for us by Silversea. And to get to Waiheke Island, our destination for the day, we boarded the Rua Moana, a luxurious yacht. As we boarded, we were serenaded by Maori singers and dancers, and then treated to a traditional Maori haka, sometimes called the Maori war dance. Once the haka had finished up, our singers and dancers bade us goodbye, and the Rua Moana got underway. The crew provided plenty of gourmet nibbles for us to indulge in, and we were free to explore the ship. Here is the bridge of the ship, our captain and Song acting like she knew what she was doing. Leaving the small protected harbor behind, and we were on our way, passing the Silver Muse at dock as we sailed past. Passing countless sailboats and other small craft, we were on our way to Waiheke Island for a little exploration and lunch. is the second largest island after the Great Barrier Island in the Hauraki Gulf of New Zealand and is located about 21.5 kilometers or 13.4 miles from Auckland proper. This island is sometimes called the Hamptons of New Zealand and is the most populated island in the Gulf with 9,100 permanent residents, making it the third most populous island in New Zealand. The island is a vacation mecca for New Zealanders, with an estimated 3,400 people having second homes or holiday homes on the island. Our goal on the island was mud brick wineries. Mud brick, established in 1992 by Robin and Nicholas Jones, has an enviable, even by New Zealand standards, reputation for producing fine wines. But we were there for lunch, and while we were having lunch, we were serenaded by musician extraordinaire Josh Lays. And after a wonderful lunch, we had the chance to go outside and enjoy the vistas for a while. If you have a chance to visit Waiheke Island in New Zealand, Mud Brick Vineyards, Winery and Restaurant are highly recommended, along with musician Josh Lays. I hate shooting anything from a bus window, these landscapes sort of demanded that I try that. And to try to snap a few shots as we drove through the quirky town on our way back to the pier and our trip back to the Silver Muse. And once back, we were treated to the sight of our captain, up there top left, piloting the ship via remote control. Once back on board, it was happy hour time, with snacks and refreshments served on our trip home. trip back into Auckland, and we were soon marking our return by passing the Silver Muse. Once the bus returned us to the cruise terminal, we were greeted by our butlers, and further on down the row, our room stewards. Once back to our suite, we found a nice little gift awaiting our return, a very heavy crystal picture frame, complete with a group photo of our fellow Grand Pacific Voyage travelers. And after dinner tonight, it was time to check out Van An Nguyen, talented Deutsche Grammophon recording artist. That's it for Segment 4, Part 1. Please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be kept up to date with our newest releases. And stay tuned for more as we head into Part 2 of Segment 4, where we journey to Middle Earth, aka Tirana, New Zealand, and then on to Gisborne, New Zealand. And as always, safe and happy travels from T's Cruise and Travel Muse.